Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Mehrob Fatemi. We got a packed show lined up for you guys today. To start off the show, we're going to obviously recap all the games that happened last night. Two 9 and 10 seed matchups between the Miami Heat and Chicago Bulls, the Dallas Mavericks and the Sacramento Kings in the Western Conference. We're going to recap both of those games, how both teams sit before their matchups on Friday for the right to face the Oklahoma City Thunder. We're gonna get into everything about these two games because these two games were incredibly interesting last night. From there, we're gonna take a look at the Sacramento Kings, dive a little bit deeper into their side. Obviously, GM Monty McNair fired or part ways late last night, immediately after the game. We're going to talk a little bit about the Sacramento Kings, what kind of played into that decision, and what's really next for this team, because officially eliminated from this year's playoffs, and still with kind of a loaded roster, still having a big three on their roster with DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, and Domantas Sabonis. These are three players that are still playing extremely well. Sabonis in the prime of his career, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Sacramento Kings in my second segment. From there, we're going to take a look at Nico Harrison, some recent news about the Luka Doncic trade. I'm going to get into all the facts about that, and then I'm going to get into a little bit about the speculation and give a little bit of my opinion about what's going on behind closed doors. Not just my opinion, some stuff I've heard from NBA insiders around the league about what could be possibly going on behind closed doors and what led to Luka Doncic officially being traded to the Los Angeles Lakers a few months ago. From there, we're going to take a look at the NBA power rankings for both conferences, both the East and the West. And to close out the show, we're going to take a look at the Oklahoma City Thunder. What is the ceiling for this team? How good can they be? How far can they go in this year's playoffs? Are they ready for the spotlight with such a young team? Can Shai Gilgeous-Alexander bring them to the promised land? We're going to talk a little bit about that. And it should be an unbelievable show. But of course, before I get started, I'd like to remind you guys to please like and follow the show for more GSMC podcast, our GSMC Sports Network content. Also, we get a number of questions from viewers that come in during the show. So to ensure that your question gets read on air, ask that you use the tips and donations link at gsmcpodcast.net for your questions. This puts your question at the top of the list so that I see it, and it also really helps out the show. Again, the link is gsmcpodcast.net for all your questions and comments. But getting right into it here, we're going to start off the show talking about the 9 and 10 seeds matchups last night in the play-in tournament. As I mentioned at the top of the show, we had the Miami Heat squaring off against the Chicago Bulls. We're going to start there in the Eastern Conference. Miami winning this game 109-90. And honestly, what was really just a domination across the board for this team. It really was not close from the get-go. Miami building out to a 11-point lead, 24-point lead to close out the first half. And it was kind of just Chicago tried to close the distance in the third quarter, but at the end of the day, Miami was just too much for this team, and they just barreled through them. That's what it felt like, and that's what ended up happening. Tyler Hero finishing the game with 38 points, possibly one of his best playoff performances since entering the league. Obviously, this is his first playoffs without Jimmy Butler. I know Jimmy Butler was hurt last season, but with Tyler Hero kind of taking that mantle as number one option on this team, not only scoring, but in general, he's really blossomed into that role, and he's continuing to grow as an offensive talent, as a leader in the locker room, and beyond. On the defensive end, of course, they still have Bam Adebayo. Andrew Wiggins dropping 20 points and 9 rebounds in this game. Massive contributions from him off the bench. Continuing to play well as after the trade from Golden State. He was part of the trade that sent Jimmy Butler to Golden State. But he's still a phenomenal player. He's still a great two-way player that can get you, in this case, 20 points. Usually can get you about 10 to 15 points a night, 5 to 7 rebounds a night. Can play good defense on their best, one of their best two-way play, or one of their best offensive scorers. He's a great blanket. He's a great security blanket on that end of the floor in general. And yeah, he's a great player in general. He's highly underrated for his skill set. But yeah, also Bam Adebayo finished with 15 points and 12 rebounds. Typical Bam Adebayo style of play. But it's interesting to see 12 rebounds, especially when he's going up against a Nikola Vucevic in the paint. It's just a battle in the interior. And actually, funny enough, Bam Adebayo and Vucevic split off for 12 rebounds apiece. So, and that's exactly where I'm going. On the other side, we had Josh Giddey going off for 25 points and 10 rebounds. Typical stat line from him. Kobe White, 17 points. Josh Giddey has played phenomenally since the All-Star break passed. He deserves all the credit in the world. We all remember his game winner. One of the top 3 finishes of the NBA season this year, when he called game from half court, shooting a half court 3 over LeBron James. Just an unbelievable game when the Chicago Bulls came back from down 17 points in the fourth quarter, down by 6 points with 9 seconds to play, and they miraculously pulled off the comeback win, and it was capped off by that Josh Giddey 3. Kobe White as well, continuing to lead this team from the guard position, specifically from after trading Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan the year prior to the Sacramento Kings. Kobe White continued to grow into this role, similar to Tyler Hero. I think Kobe White is a little bit more of a floor general, I'd say. I think Tyler Hero is more like a Steph Curry-esque shooting guard mixed with point guard. Kobe White is more of like a floor general, can facilitate the ball very well, can get you about 15 to 20 points a night with about 5 to 10 assists a night. Honestly, last night he had 5 assists, but it honestly is on that big of a spectrum, between 5 and 10 assists a night usually for him. But yeah, overall, it was a phenomenal game from him. Phenomenal game from the Miami Heat as they pulled this one out 109-90, like I mentioned to start the show. Miami now looks to take on Atlanta on Friday night. I'll preview that matchup a little bit more on Friday, but I'm personally picking Miami to win this game. I think their ability to defend. Erik Spoelstra played a big role in last night's win, especially since in the regular season, not even a week prior, these two teams squared off between Miami and Chicago won that matchup 119-111. Miami pretty much flipped the script on them, and I know that can happen sometimes on any given night, but given Erik Spoelstra's experience being in the league for the last almost 20 years now, well, 20 years might be a stretch, probably about 14, 15 years now, being first starting off as a part of the Pat Riley coaching staff in Miami, eventually being promoted to head coach of this team for, I think, in 2014, because, yeah, he was a part of the Dwayne Wade team that won the NBA Finals without LeBron when Dwayne Wade won his first championship, and then he was part of the other LeBron teams that eventually won more titles. But that's neither here nor there. The experience that Erik Spoelstra has gives him the edge over a lot of teams. We see it time and time again. We saw it against Boston in 2023 with Joe Mazzulla in his first year, when Erik Spoelstra really just coached circles around him, eventually winning that series 4-3. I wouldn't say that was 100% Erik Spoelstra in terms of how they won, but I would say that he had a definitive role in Miami winning that year in 2023. And this is another prime example of his talent and what he brings to the team in general. But yeah, I'm picking Miami to win this game over Atlanta. I think they'll probably clamp down Trae Young very well. I think we saw the Orlando Magic really just give a formula at how to beat this Atlanta Hawks team. I think in a way, Miami's built similarly. I think they're more guard heavy, and they're with Tyler Hero, with Duncan Robinson. They're a little bit more guard heavy, and they can definitely shoot the ball more. They're not as tall, lengthy as the Orlando Magic players are, such as Apollo Banchero. But they're still a great team, and I think if it ends up as a shooting match, if it ends up as a shootout, I think Miami can win this game if it ends up in that way. I think Tyler Hero can turn it on whenever he wants, especially when he gets hot. He was one of the best collegiate shooters in the NBA in collegiate history, and he's continued to perform at a very high level down the stretch here as we close the season. So, yeah, I think I just think Miami can my pick is Miami will beat Atlanta in the first round and move on to face the Cleveland Cavaliers. Um, yeah, I'll go for it. I was gonna I was thinking about putting in a break here and then talking about the Dallas Mavericks Sacramento game, but we can go straight into it here. Um, Dallas and Dallas and Sacramento squaring off last night in the late game. Dallas winning this one 120 to 106. This was exact. I said this was going to go two ways. Either it's going to be Sacramento could shoot the lights out and their offense moves with incredible pace and rhythm, or B, it's a dogfight. The Dallas Mavericks um, just not instigate, but influence the game with their size, dominate the game in the interior with Anthony Davis, PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford, Derek Lively, all these guys. They'll just dominate the interior, and that's exactly what happened. Anthony Davis finishing with 27 points in this one, PJ Washington with 17, and Daniel Gafford with 9 points. It really just was a dominating performance all around. Um, Another key piece of this game was Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson finishing with 16 points to finish the first half, 23 points overall. He was lights out from 3-point range, going 5 for 7 from three, 8 for 11 from the field. He was very efficient last night, and he was a big reason why that interior was open to it for much of that game. That the threat that Klay Thompson poses when he gets that three ball going, we saw it in Steph Curry. I know he's getting a little bit older, but we saw it. We saw it in Golden State with Steph Curry, with how that duo was just unstoppable from sometimes when they got hot. Klay doesn't have Steph anymore, but in a similar fashion with how unstoppable Steph Curry can be sometimes from 3-point range, the Dallas Mavericks are unstoppable in the interior, getting to the offensive glass, getting rebounds, being able to defend, being able to block shots, and being able to destroy the interior and dominate the paint. That is their strength, and with that strength, it kind of collapses the interior for Klay Thompson outside. If Klay Thompson gets it going outside, it it brings everybody out, extends the floor, and it destroys the interior. This team is still a great. I wouldn't say this team is still a good team. I'd say the Dallas Mavericks are still one of the best teams in the NBA. They continue to prove it time and time again. Um, I'm gonna get into this a little bit later in the show, but especially with how the Luka trade transpired, especially with Kyrie Irving tearing his ACL earlier in the season, right after the Luka trade. I think it might have still been February or it might have been early March, one of those two. I just think I just think this Dallas Mavericks team can still compete. I would not be shocked. I think they would give Oklahoma City a little extra run for their money. I still pick Oklahoma City regardless. Dallas plays Memphis to face the right to face for the right to face the OKC in the first round. I think regardless of who faces OKC, they're moving on to the second round. But I do think it would be probably Dallas would probably take at least one, if not two games against Oklahoma City, dominating the interior of that paint. I don't think Hartenstein and Chet Holmgren are ready to stop an Anthony Davis or a PJ Washington or a Daniel Gafford. I just don't think maybe they might be able to stop them individually, But as a team working cohesively, all three of them possibly on the court at the same time, it's gonna be I don't want to call it impossible to stop them, but it's gonna be difficult for anybody to handle this team. And imagine if they still had Kyrie Irving in the starting lineup, if they were fully healthy with Klay Thompson playing the way he is. That's why in a way this team could have still been competitive in the Western Conference. Say if Kyrie Irving stayed healthy, but we're gonna get into that later in the show. I'm gonna take a short break. When we come back, we're gonna take a look at the Sacramento Kings as a whole, kind of recap their whole season, recap from the DeMar DeRozan trade last year to the De'Aaron Fox trade mid-season to what to expect from this team come this offseason. I'm going to take a short break, and we're going to talk Sacramento Kings basketball when I come back.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on their fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Mehrob Fatemi. Getting into this next segment here, we're going to take a deeper dive into the Sacramento Kings, how their season has transpired, overall recapping their season, recapping what happened with the DeMar DeRozan trade last season, De'Aaron Fox this season, and now what to really expect from this team come this offseason, how they can improve, and where they should go from here. But I'm going to... Before I move any further, I'd like to remind you guys to please like and follow the show for more GSMC Sports Network content. Also, we get a number of questions and comments that come in during the show. So to ensure that your question gets read on air, I ask that you use the tips and donations link at gsmcpodcast.net for your questions. This puts your question at the top of the list so I see it, and it also really helps out the show. Again, the link is gsmcpodcast.net for all your questions and comments. And I've mentioned this before, your guys' input helps us build our shows, all the positive, all the negative. Let us know what you guys like about it, what we can improve upon, and we'll continue to build our shows best we can, continue them to fit the mold that what you guys want to see. But, yeah, getting right back into it here. Monty McNair, not Steve McNair, mutually agreeing to part ways from the Sacramento Kings last night. Very late, about 2 or 3 hours after the game this came out. It was, in a way, it was a little bit expected with how the De'Aaron Fox trade panned out for this team. The Sacramento Kings were in the playoffs 2 years ago. That was before they traded for DeMar DeRozan. They brought in DeMar DeRozan to kind of try and help increase the cohesiveness of this team, continue to just give De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis some help. Because this team, like I mentioned, was in the NBA playoffs, brought the Golden State Warriors in 2023. 2 or 3. I believe it was 2023. Yeah, to Game 7. They brought that team to a Game 7. They brought Steph Curry to a Game 7. And they were the light the beam champs were real. This team was one of the best teams in the NBA. Shooting the ball, they were unbelievable. Defending, they were unbelievable. Across the board, they were just solid, and their offense was their juggernaut, their biggest piece. Um, but then they faced the Golden State Warriors, and it was just Steph Curry. It was the Steph Curry show, really. The Steph Curry. I'm trying to think back if Clay was still on the team back then. I believe he still was. Yeah. Um, but yeah, overall, it's difficult to see this Kings team falling apart a little bit down the stretch here. But McNair spending 5 years running the Sacramento Kings, winning Executive of the Year in 2023, like I mentioned. Sacramento Kings were a great team back then. They went 48-34 and snapped a 16-year playoff drought. The light the beam chants were real back then, and if it wasn't for Steph Curry interfering with the Sacramento Kings plans, they were still one of the best teams in the NBA, and they could have made a deep playoff run had they had not gone up against Golden State that year. Golden State obviously going up against LA in the following round and being beaten 6 games. But I remember that Sacramento Golden State series. That was one of my favorite series. Sacramento going up 3-2. Everybody thinking Sacramento was going to run away with it in Game 6 back in Sacramento. Was it in Sacramento? I'm trying to think back. It was either Game 6 was in Sacramento or Game 7 was in Sacramento. And regardless, either way, it was a phenomenal series. But the Kings have won 40 or more games in the last 3 straight seasons with Monty McNair. And before this, they had not won 40 games since 2005. It continues to staple and hit home my point that this team was one of the better teams in the NBA prior to their moves with DeMar DeRozan is what it is, but especially with the move to trade De'Aaron Fox away to where he is now in San Antonio. But yeah, like I mentioned, they decided to trade DeMar DeRozan last season from the Chicago Bulls to kind of try and relieve some of the pressure off of De'Aaron Fox offensively, give him a little bit of an outlet to just be able to move better, be able to open up, be able to run the offense better in general. And it just feels like it hasn't panned out the way they thought it would. It just feels like their team, they still had a great team. They still have a great team. But maybe it was their young talent that they gave away for DeMar DeRozan. Same thing with De'Aaron Fox. De'Aaron Fox being the focal point of this offense in 2024, or in general since his entire career in Sacramento. And moving away from him just kind of threw this whole team for a loop. Yeah, it's sad because Sacramento was one of my I was more fond of them, especially with how young they were, with how great they looked they could get. They looked like they were going to be great for a long period of time. They looked like the younger version of the Golden State Warriors from back in the day with Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green. But it's neither here nor there. Anthony Manzano, I see you commenting in the chat. Hello, by the way. Sorry about that. Did Miami screw themselves by winning this play-in tournament game going into the playoffs with the lottery? Or because of the record, they already had solidified a lottery spot? I'm not 100% sure on that. I remember you commenting about this. I'm not 100% sure if they've solidified a lottery spot. I do see what you mean because of how it just feels like this team is a little bit mediocre. We talked about the Miami Heat to start the show, their game with the Chicago Bulls last night, and we kind of previewed the Atlanta Hawks game as well. There is a world where they made a mistake. I completely understand where you're coming from, but I just don't see in the Eric Spoelstra era and with Pat Riley still as the executive of this team that they will intentionally lose games or not give their best effort, especially come playoff time, to win games and continue to defy the odds. We didn't really expect it with Jimmy Butler back in the day in 2023 when they were the 8th seed and they still went out and knocked off the number 1 seed in Milwaukee, knocked off the Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals. They're just one of those teams that you just can never count out, I think. that's what their culture is about, and they just continue to build that and continue to push that every year, it feels like. Even with their younger guys, with the veterans that they still do have Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo, but I do know what you mean. I think, in a way, if they can be competitive in the NBA playoffs, I think any team that can be competitive in the NBA playoffs can look more, um, better in general sometimes for upcoming free agents, big name free agents looking for a new home. They might look at you guys being like, oh, this team played really well down the stretch. They made a great playoff push. They made a great push in the playoffs. Maybe this is the culture that I want to go to because they're trying to continue. They're still trying to go after an NBA championship, regardless of how tough and rugged it may look, with how continue to defy the odds to just go after a championship. I just think. Um, I'm a Heat fan. I didn't want them to purposely lose, but this makes no sense making the playoffs, in my opinion, when you don't have the talent to even compete with Cleveland. Yeah, I mean, as a Heat fan, I'm a Celtics fan, so you guys, the Miami Heat, have really been in our heads for a long time. Um, so I completely understand what you mean, but I mean, in the same way, what does it matter that the Dallas Mavericks are kind of trying to make a push for the NBA playoffs? They still do have Anthony Davis. They still do have a bunch of young guys that can be great pieces on a good team, and they're just kind of they're continuing to build their chemistry with one another. And who knows, especially in the playoffs, injuries can happen. Anything can happen in the playoffs. We've seen it time and time again. And especially you as a Heat fan, you know how good this team can be as an underdog. I don't know. I think maybe I can see what you mean, that Cleveland is one of the better teams, one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. For sure, I understand where you're coming from with that. But I also don't think I also think that Cleveland could be had if you can. If we'll see how it all plays out. I'll probably preview that series. First, you guys got to go through Atlanta, though. That is the focal point for the Miami Heat. They have to go through Atlanta on Friday night. If they can do that, they'll play Cleveland. But let's just see if they'll do that first. Just because I completely understand what you mean. This team isn't one of the favorite teams. I wouldn't guarantee that win, is what I'm saying. So, yeah, I completely understand what you mean. But going back to the Sacramento Kings here, I mentioned the De'Aaron Fox trade. I mentioned DeMar DeRozan. Now the GM is fired after 5 seasons, regardless of he winning the NBA Executive of the Year in 2023. Where do they move from here? It is a little bit unfortunate. We have heard a little bit of rumblings from Domantas Sabonis since the De'Aaron Fox trade about how he just wants to compete for a championship. He wants to compete on playoff teams, especially as he's still in the prime of his career as one of the better big men in the league. He's still one of those premier guys, and I completely understand where he's coming from. I honestly echo that message that he just wants to continue to play well. He continues to want to be on a competitive team. But could he be traded? There is a world he could be traded this offseason. There is also a world they can kind of keep their core guys with DeRozan, Levine, and Sabonis. If they can add another piece to this team, another star, if they can add a point guard, a legitimate point guard to continue to balance this offense, to guide this offense into the right direction, I think that would pay great dividends for this team. We saw the Dallas Mavericks go on a 44-19 run in the second quarter of this game, and it just continues to speak volumes as to how the offense is just sputtering when it matters most, really. So, yeah, I just think if they can continue to build their bench, if they can continue to draft well like they have, and not trade away their prospects, I think they can still be a good team. Keegan Murray is still growing into a good player. You still have Keon Ellis, who's growing into a good player. Devin Carter's you still have a good team, I think. So, as a Kings fan, I would not say all hope is lost for this team. They still can do some stuff in the offseason. The question will be if they decide to fire Mike Brown or not, the head coach of the Sacramento Kings right now, especially with how they've been playing on defense. I know it's not a loaded market right now, especially with everybody clamoring for a Mike Malone or a Taylor Jenkins. But I do think like maybe a Taylor Jenkins could be a good fit for this team. The Kings are still one of the better teams looking for a head coach right now. So yeah, I just think the Kings are not all hope is not lost for this team, I'd say. But I'm gonna take another short break. When we come back, we're gonna take a look at the Oklahoma City Thunder. How far can they go in this year's NBA playoffs? Are they too young for the moment? Can they really prosper the way we think? Can they prosper under the expectations we're giving them right now? I'm gonna take a short break, and when we come back, it's gonna be Oklahoma City Thunder basketball.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Mehrob Fatemi. Getting right back into it here. We're going to take a look at the Oklahoma City Thunder. How far can this team really go? Can they win it all? They have the highest odds right now with one of the youngest teams in the NBA to win the NBA championship. We know they won 60 plus games this season with the best record across the entire NBA. Statistically up there for one of the greatest teams in NBA history, both top 5 in offensive efficiency rating. I believe they still finished with the top defensive rating across the NBA, or at the very least still top 5. Yeah, I really do think this team, it's tough. It really is tough. There's 2 narratives in this. There's one narrative that a lot of people are following, that a lot of people are really backing with. This team is one of the best teams in the NBA. They proved it all regular season. Why can't they prove it what makes you think they can't prove it in the playoffs? I mentioned the statistics to start the show. Specifically on the defensive end of the ball, they have been across the board from steals per game, blocks per game, 3-point shooting efficiency, points given up per game, turnovers forced per game, being able to grab defensive rebounds. In general, they have been across the board one of the best defensive teams, not only this season, but one of the better statistically defensive teams in NBA history. Up there with the greats of the Bad Boy Pistons, the Supersonics with Gary Payton and Sean Kemp. These teams that were legitimate great teams, they're matching up with them in the defensive category. Offensively, obviously, they still have the MVP candidate in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They still have young pieces like Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren. They still are phenomenally helped. They are still incredibly well coached, similar to Houston, but we really haven't seen this head coach right now in OKC. This is his first year really prospering and really growing the franchise the way he has, really growing them as quickly as he has. And they're just a very young core group of guys, one of the youngest teams in the NBA. So they're not only here to be good for the immediate future, can possibly win the championship this year, but they will most likely be good for years to come. But that is the first narrative. This team is a young team. They were great all season long. What makes you think they can't be great in the playoffs? 100% understand that, no questions. The other side of the narrative that I personally, as an NBA fan, the NBA fan is talking right now. Well, no. Scratch what I just said. My opinion on what this Thunder team is, I think with how powerful this year's NBA Western Conference is, with how star-studded from 1 to 8, there aren't very many underdogs across the board you can look. There are not very... The truth is, the term underdogs does not make sense this season in the Western Conference. You can just throw that term out the window. You can chuck it. You can chuck it out the window right now. Why? When you have a conference, I'll go down the list right now. Thunder, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, MVP candidate. Houston Rockets, Jalen Green, phenomenally head coached by Ime Udoka, continuing to shock people. Lakers, Luka Doncic, LeBron James, Austin Reeves. Clippers, Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, Vika Zubac, Norman Powell. Nuggets, Jamal Murray, and Nikola Jokic, obviously still arguably the best player in NBA basketball right now. Golden State, Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler. Even 7 with Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle. Even 8 with Memphis with John Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Desmond Bane. Even 9 with the Dallas Mavericks right now with Anthony Davis and Klay Thompson and PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford. The interior that they have that trumps a lot of other teams across with their interior play. I just mentioned 9 teams with arguably at least one superstar talent on their team. And a young gun team in the Oklahoma City Thunder that are still really puppies in this game. We saw them last season make it to the second round, go up against Dallas, who eventually made it to the NBA Finals, and lose in 6 games. We did see that with the Oklahoma City Thunder, and they were still incredibly competitive. We've seen Shai Gilgeous-Alexander grow into an MVP candidate. We've seen Jalen Williams continuing to grow as a reliable scoring option for this team. We've seen Chet Holmgren continue to grow as a center for this team, continuing to add pieces like Alex Caruso, Isaiah Hartenstein. I get it across the board. Lou Dort as a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. I get it across the board. But I would be remiss if I did not mention, at least this is my personal opinion, that when the playoffs begin, the game slows down, the transition baskets they're not a thing, defenses get back, coaches scheme like it's like a jigsaw puzzle every single game with coaches making adjustments, halftime adjustments, pregame adjustments, post-game adjustments, and you have to see the same team at a maximum of 7 times and beat that team 4 times out of 7. It is an absolute jigsaw puzzle in the NBA playoffs with these coaches. It always has been. We've seen it for years. And as much as I love this Thunder team, as much as I think they are going to be around for years to come, and they can beat anybody, I do believe that they are too young right now. I do believe that they really, really need another reliable scorer. Jalen Williams is awesome. Do not get me wrong. We've seen him score 30 points, 40 points. But in my opinion, Jalen Williams is very Austin Reeves-esque, but can handle the ball more. He's asked to do more in Oklahoma City than Austin Reeves is in LA, but they play similar roles in terms of their scoring, in terms of being able to get a big bucket when they need it. That's Jalen Williams' role. But I really do think they need either a veteran talent to really continue to grow and foster the young group in Oklahoma City right now, or they need a young talent to pair with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, to pair with Jalen Williams, to continue to build that young core, and that'll make them even more solidified to win titles over the next 5 to 10 years, like I mentioned to start the segment. I think the Thunder are one of the best teams, one of the most organized and well-built franchises in the NBA this season, no question. But I also think that this Oklahoma City Thunder team is a little bit too young, and a little bit of the Western Conference being as powerful as it is, as dominant as it is, it just looks like they have too steep of a hill to climb, too steep of a mountain to climb in this year's Western Conference to make it to the NBA Finals, just to face a team like Boston, which they've had Boston's number, or face a Cleveland Cavaliers team that they've had a sort of rivalry with. Whoever comes out of the Western Conference this year, no doubt will be. I wouldn't be shocked if Adam Silver pushes the NBA Finals off a couple days just to give these guys whoever comes out of the Western Conference, a little bit of an extra rest before the NBA Finals start. That is how much of a gauntlet the Western Conference is. Almost every series is projected to go at least 6 or 7 games outside of whoever the Thunder play in the first round. The Rockets, Warriors, easily 6 or 7 games. Clippers, Nuggets, 7 games. Lakers, Timberwolves, at least 6 games. And from there, don't even get me started. Thunder, Clippers, Lakers, Warriors, it doesn't matter. These are all just, like, the only way I could describe them, they're just Titan matchups. They're great teams going up against each other, trying to just find little edges to just squeak out wins. And that's what the Thunder are having to deal with. Are they going to be ready for that kind of battle? Are they going to be ready for a series like that? They're not, especially with the expectations that we're just throwing on such a young team like this. As much as I want to compare them to the Boston Celtics of back in the day, before Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown blossomed, before Kyrie Irving arrived there, as much as I want to compare them to them, as much as I want to compare the Thunder to the Celtics of back then, the Celtics back then did not have the expectations that the Thunder have right now. And I think that's the biggest difference. I think that could be the downfall of this team. I did rant a little bit. I apologize for that. But I've heard too much about the Thunder recently. I see too much of pressure, continuous added pressure being thrown on them. And I know they were the best team in the NBA. I know they had the MVP candidate in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. But nobody can bear, with how young this team is, I don't think they're going to be able to bear it. It's too much. It's too much to deal with. It really is too much. And if they crash and burn, say they get swept or they lose in 5 games to, say, the Clippers or the Nuggets, who they might face, or the Warriors, it doesn't matter, or the Rock, it doesn't matter. Say they get swept by somebody. What's going to happen then? Their morale is going to fall. Maybe the GM realizes that they need another scorer on this team, but it's going to mess up with the chemistry. The chemistry is already kind of shot, with their confidence being shot. It's just going to be difficult for this team to get back. And there are players to do it. We have seen players fail. We've seen Jason Tatum fail in the 2022 NBA Finals, come up small, hear all the scrutiny because of it, because of all, similar to the Thunder this year, hearing all the noise about them as they continue to grow in the NBA playoffs, and then come back in 2024, win the NBA championship, and bring another title to Boston. I'm just comparing apples to apples, I feel like. You guys let me know what you think in the comments. 100%, I'm all ears. I really want to know what, honestly, your guys' take on all of this. But I'm going to take another short break. When we get back, we're going to talk about Nico Harrison. He made some recent news about the press conference that he did last week, as well as some quotes that I've heard from NBA insiders, both from Brian Windhorst, Shams Charania. We're gonna talk about facts first, about the Luka trade, about Nico Harrison, about everything from there. And then from there, we're going to look at a little bit of speculation, a little bit of what's going on behind closed doors, a little bit of what I think could be going on behind closed doors. There are multiple angles to this, for sure. Absolutely, there are multiple angles. We're going to dive into everything about Nico Harrison and what really played a role in Luka being traded to the Los Angeles Lakers.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Getting right back into it here. Who deserves blame right now in Dallas? I want to talk about everything Nico Harrison, everything about Dallas Mavericks right now. Obviously, Nico Harrison having his first press conference since the Luka trade. There was a lot of things that happened in this press conference. To start, before the press conference even happened, Nico Harrison saying definitively, no cameras, no audio equipment. They don't want anything on tape. They don't want anything on camera. Nothing. They don't want any proof. They don't want anything being quoted, any of that. They don't want to be quoted directly. Journalists end up entering the room. As a former journalist myself, I would honestly probably do the exact same thing. As a journalist studying in college right now, I would do the exact same thing. Go into that room, ask the coach ask Nico saying, "Hi, could I just record this just for quotes? I want to write a story about this." They can't say no. What are they going to say? It's their right. It's the right to speech, especially as a press conference, especially as a member of the organization, as an organized thing with people having an audience, part of the journalists having audience reading their articles, wanting to learn more about what's going on. You need to directly quote Nico Harrison to build the story. It's bread and butter. It's like having ketchup without fries. It's like having fries without ketchup. It's just, you can't have one without the other. You can't, or it makes no sense. It just throws the whole thing for a loop. But yeah, eventually Nico Harrison obliging, saying, okay, you can have audio equipment only. No cameras, but you can have audio equipment. Going in there, I'm not going to quote exactly what he said because I don't have it in front of me. I apologize. Usually I do. But basically what Nico Harrison said was, we're trying to build a defensive-fronted team. Defense wins championships. That's our culture now. That's what we're trying to go for. We still think we are competitive in the Western Conference. We saw that we were competitive for 2.5 quarters with Anthony Davis in the lineup. And yeah, just pretty much saying stuff along those lines that this wasn't a bad move. Everything's going to work out. Don't worry about it. Trying to control the narrative of the uproar that's gone on in Dallas since Luka Doncic being traded to the Los Angeles Lakers. But as much as I want to believe Nico Harrison and I see what he's talking about, there are 100% holes in his argument. To go on a press conference almost a week and a half removed after Luka Doncic came back to Dallas, dropped 45 points on you, a week removed from Anthony Davis showing up on the same court and not playing very well I think he only had about 10 or 15 points in that game. The asset, the main asset that you got back from the Luka trade, Anthony Davis not playing well in his return, in Luka's return to Dallas, to sit there in the middle of that game and hear coaches, or not coaches, fans scream out in the stands saying, "Fire Nico Harrison," chanting your name to get fired, asking for you to step down, and you go on a press conference a week and a half later and say, "Everything's going to be okay, don't worry about it," to a fan favorite. That's like the Boston, I don't even want to, no, I'm not enough. I'm sorry about the Boston comparisons. But you can't do that as a GM. You can't do it. You can't do that if I was a fan of the Dallas Mavericks, I would be sick to my stomach after hearing what Nico Harrison said last night or last week, especially with the fact that he said 2.5 quarters with Anthony Davis being in the lineup. You can't say that with Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving being in the lineup together since Kyrie Irving got injured and tore his ACL. You can't say that. You cannot say that. 2.5 quarters? Really? Really? I don't think that's right. I really don't agree with it at all. But that's the facts. Another fact is Brian Windhorst reporting yesterday on First Take saying that Nico Harrison, that he confirmed it, that Nico Harrison was asked to do this by owner Patrick Dumont. Now, take that the way you'd like, but the new majority owner of the Dallas Mavericks this season, actually, this first season as the majority owner since Mark Cuban lost that title, goes out and does this. Trading Luka Doncic, one of the top 5 players, easily top 5, if not top 3 in the NBA, a year removed from returning the Dallas Mavericks to the NBA Finals for the first time since 2010 when they won it all. Instead of giving him another year to grow with him and Kyrie Irving, instead of bringing another asset in to grow with this team, you not only trade Luka Doncic, you trade him to the Lakers. You don't get a first-round pick out of it. You don't get Austin Reeves out of it. You get nothing. You get Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis getting hurt. To pair with Kyrie Irving, that was your original plan. Kyrie Irving gets hurt, tears his ACL, out for the season. There is speculation that he'll be back in January of next season, but he's not getting any younger. He's had major injuries before. He's had injuries to this knee before. He's tore his Achilles before. This is not his first major injury, and especially on the trajectory that Kyrie Irving was on prior to being injured, we can't primarily assume that he's going to be back to that same stature that he was. Kyrie Irving was one of the better point guards, easily one of the top 15, top 20 players in the NBA before being injured, before getting hurt, easily. Resurrecting his career. After what happened in Brooklyn, he's been resurrecting his career over the last 2 years or so. And it's just not fair to him. It's not fair to the team. It's not fair to the fans. This is where the speculation starts as to why the Luka Doncic trade happened. Especially with the news confirming that the owners asked Nico Harrison to do that press conference last week. We can only assume that, well, I'm assuming, this is my opinion, only. 2 things. First, I'm just assuming, like I said, I'd say that they asked Nico Harrison to do that interview, and Nico Harrison asked for no camera, no audio equipment because they didn't want his name or they didn't want anything being quoted, because when the second they get a video or a clip on you, it's over. It's over. It's done. This whole thing will stay with Nico Harrison's name regardless, but if the clip and the camera footage stayed with him prior, I don't know if he would have another job. And it's tough, especially if this does not pan out the way Nico Harrison would like. He's just being painted as the scapegoat. It's being hard. It's hard for him to want to be with this team, to see his name being slandered like that. So he definitely probably asked for the cameras and audio to be off so he could protect his own name. It makes 100% sense in that state. But I also think another reason why the Luka Doncic trade happened was because at the end of the day, the owners are the ones that pay the players. They are the ones that agree if they want to go over the luxury tax. It's a kind of the same reason why there's speculation that Wyc Grousbeck recently sold the Boston Celtics, because they were almost $1 billion starting lineup. Literally, you got two players making over $700 million a year. Two players. Oh, in the second tier of the luxury tax, paying over $1 billion, paying almost $1 billion, over $1 billion for the roster alone. It's just too expensive. And it honestly makes sense why Grousbeck did not want to remain as the owner of this team in Boston. Going back to Dallas, in a small market as Dallas is, in the first year as a majority owner, you're supposed to go out and give Luka Doncic a $312 million extension, the biggest extension in NBA history, to one player. I believe he was supposed to get $350 million or something. Not 312, 350. As an owner, I would not want to do that in my first year. No way. No. And it makes sense. But if that's the facts, if that's what transpired, if that's the reasoning why Luka Doncic was traded, on top of that, you wouldn't want as a new owner that label being attached to your name. Absolutely not. You would pin the blame on the GM, because the GM is the one that makes the front office decisions. You trade him, and you say the GM traded him, because on top of that, you say the GM traded him just to get the label off your name. On top of that, the Los Angeles Lakers and I can't remember, I can picture his face, Rob Pelinka and Nico Harrison had a history before this. It's been reported Nico Harrison had a relationship with Rob Pelinka as a friendship, obviously. Just continuing to grow their friendship, and they were friends prior to this trade. I would not be shocked if Rob Pelinka heard some rumors about this, called up Nico Harrison knowing that they wanted to get rid of him, didn't want to give him a king's ransom by giving up Austin Reeves or a first-round pick, gave up Anthony Davis's sufficient compensation, and called it a day. In my eyes, that's how this all played out. But that's neither here nor there. We're probably never going to find out exactly what happened between these two teams, or what happened in the front office, between the front office and the owners. But this is how I see it. This is how I speculated, because the NBA is a business these days, and the players are just pawns on a chessboard. And this is another instance of that. We've seen it time and time again, and this is just another instance of it. I'm going to take another short break. When we come back, we're going to take a look at the top 4 teams in each conference, the power rankings in each conference, both the East and the West. And yeah, I'll be right back, and we get some NBA conference power rankings. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Mehrob Fatemi. Getting right back into our next segment here. To close out the show, we're gonna take a look at the top 4 teams in both the East in the Western Conference playoffs. I want to apologize to start. Usually, I have a graphic prepped and ready to go for this segment to just give a little bit of a visual read as to what's going on. Excuse me. I did not get around to it this morning. It's been a crazy day in the college world, in the college life. Senior year with the month left to go, it's just been crazy. A lot going on. That's neither here nor there. I just wanted to apologize for that first and foremost. But getting right into it here. We're going to start with the Eastern Conference, obviously. We're going to save the best for last. Eastern Conference, my top 4 teams. We'll start with 4. I really would put the Milwaukee Bucks at 4. Milwaukee Bucks with Giannis Antetokounmpo, Damian Lillard, still in the starting lineup, or Damian Lillard injured, but has been cleared, is continuing to be cleared, getting better with his blood clots, could be back sometime this series against the Indiana Pacers in the first round. Could be back sometime next week. He's officially ruled out for game 1, but game 2 and onward past that is still up in the air. So we'll see how that all plays out. So I'd start with the Bucks at 4, especially with the MVP candidate in Giannis Antetokounmpo. From there, I would look at the Indiana Pacers at 3. The Indiana Pacers, personally, are one of my favorite teams. They're probably my dark horses to win the Eastern Conference, my number 1 dark horse. A lot of teams are really just riding this. A lot of people are riding this Indiana Pacers team off. 3-1 against the Cleveland Cavaliers in the regular season. Have always played Boston tough. Incredibly deep team led by Tyrese Halliburton and Pascal Siakam. Can really go about 7 or 8 guys deep that can go double figures, can score double figures or more. They're just a phenomenal team. All around, well-balanced team, offensively, defensively. Don't really have that guy. The one thing about this team is they don't have that offensive talent that just wows you, that you can say, okay, go get me a bucket definitively and reliably. I don't have to worry. I don't have to worry that you're going to miss. I don't have to worry about anything. You just go out there, especially in the playoffs, in a tight game. With 5 minutes to go in a tie game, you need a guy to go out there and just get you a bucket, to just run the offense. Tyrese Halliburton is what we wanted. We wanted Tyrese Halliburton to be that guy. But Tyrese Halliburton has proven, honestly, he hasn't 100% proven this. I still want to give him a chance that he can change this narrative, that he can grow into more offensive player, scoring player, but he's more of just a floor general, Magic Johnson facilitator that can guide the offense, pass the ball, put the guys into the right positions to win. We have seen him score game winners. We've seen him be clutch. We've seen playoff moments from last season when he hit the game winner against Milwaukee. I believe he hit another game winner this season in the regular season against Milwaukee as well. They're still a great team. So they're incredibly formidable in the Eastern Conference. I'd say I'm putting him at 3 as my dark horse to win the Eastern Conference. I know 3 isn't usually a dark horse, but it's only a dark horse because of the top 2 seeds. The top 2 seeds being, in my opinion, head and shoulders above the 3 through 8. And number 2, I'd shockingly put the Cleveland Cavaliers. Cleveland Cavaliers, head coached by Kenny Atkinson, just similar to the Thunder, very young team led by Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell obviously being a veteran in this league, being in the league for about 8 or 9 years now. But it's still kind of young with Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen a little bit, not as much, DeAndre Hunter a little bit. Their bench is deep, do not get me wrong, but it is still a little bit young with George Niang, Dean Wade. These guys, they're still great players, but they're just young team. They're a very young team, and they're continuing to grow every day. It feels like they're continuing to grow into their roles, into the NBA in general. That I have them at 2. I think they're either them. I have the Pacers as dark horses for this one reason. I think they're going to square off against the Cleveland Cavaliers in the second round. And with how Indiana plays Cleveland, first of all, it's going 7 games, I think. Easily it's going 7 games. This is one of the most underrated playoff series that a lot of people have not been looking at. Are projected if all pans out. Pacers have to beat Milwaukee, which is a question mark right now. But if they do that and they face Cleveland in the second round, I think they'll push Cleveland to 7 games easily. And who knows who will win that 7th game. It's 1 game to decide your life. Who knows? It's always a 50-50 toss-up. So we'll see how that all transpires. But I think they have a legitimate shot to make it to at least the Eastern Conference Finals, if not to the NBA Finals. My number 1 team in the Eastern Conference, obviously, I've said this before. I don't want to put this into the mix, but I have to be transparent here. I am a Boston Celtics fan. I am. I know. I get it. A lot of people may call that a little bit biased with takes. I just don't know how I can be biased with this. I legitimately, the Boston Celtics are just so, the 5 guys that they put on the court at the same time are so lights out shooting. Kristaps Porzingis being able to extend the floor. Jason Tatum being able to drive to the basket, with Jaylen Brown as well being able to do the same thing. I know Jaylen Brown is a little bit dinged up right now. He has a bit of a knee issue. But if this team can stay healthy through the NBA playoffs, I just don't think how they can lose the East, at least in the East. I don't think they can lose in the East. I think they make it out of the East. Whoever they face in the Eastern Conference Finals, they'll probably beat in 6 or 7 games and move on to the NBA Finals. So I'm picking Boston with how deep they are, with how exceptionally well coached they are, winning the NBA Finals last season. Championship pedigree. Jason Tatum obviously being in the Eastern Conference Finals about 5 or 6 times. Just like continuing to defy the odds, continuing to set the standard as a young player in a prospering, growing, blossoming franchise in Boston. But yeah, that's my top 4. Boston, Cleveland, Indiana, and Milwaukee for the top 4 of the Eastern Conference. Switching gears to the West. I won't lie, this was a little bit tougher to do. With how strong the Western Conference is right now, this was much more difficult to pick. It's pretty much picking needles out of a haystack and picking little needles. It's borderline impossible to do, definitively, and create a supporting argument that decisively puts one team over another. But starting at 4. I'm going to put the Golden State Warriors at 4. I know Jimmy Butler, playoff Jimmy. I get it. This is, again, please stay with me here. Having a little bit of shooting slumps from time to time. We've seen their third quarter continue to bother them. We saw the Memphis Grizzlies without Ja Morant come back in this game in the third quarter. They can hit shooting slumps. They can hit offensive scoring slumps. And that's the biggest thing with this team that kind of worries me a little bit. They are still a great team, do not get me wrong, but I'd be remiss if I did not mention that this team, while they are a great team, has had struggles down the stretch here. Regardless of how their record looks, with how dominant, with how hot they've been, they still have had struggles, and there are little increments of time that can be, especially in the playoffs, against loaded teams, with how loaded the Western Conference is. Those little increments can come out as big chunks and big reasons why end results happen the way they do. So I had the Warriors at 4. At 3, I'm going to put the Los Angeles Clippers. The Clippers with Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, and Norman Powell, Vika Zubac, a team that's really growing and has gotten hot. Easily probably the hottest team in the Western Conference. 19-3 since March 1st. Easily one of the best teams in the Western Conference. Kawhi Leonard continuing to prove when he's healthy that he's a top 5 player in the NBA. James Harden completely throwing his narrative into a whirl that he can continue to play at an all NBA level. Norman Powell playing as an exceptional bench piece when he comes off the bench as a starter, continue to do that as well. Zubats as a double-double machine on the offensive glass, continuing to grow as a player in general. This team is great. I really think it's exceptionally well coached by Ty Lue. I think they can. I really think they can go all the way to the NBA Finals if they'd like, if they can. They're my dark horses to win the Western Conference. A lot of people are writing them off, but as NBA fans, I know a lot of NBA fans have been watching this team. Their name continues to pop up around the association as one of the hottest teams in the NBA, having multiple 5+ win streaks over the last 2 months or so. They deserve all the credit in the world for how they've played down the stretch here and how they're looking with the playoffs quickly approaching. At 2, I'm going to put the Los Angeles Lakers. I know they're a little bit of a bias, not even a bias pick, but I know a lot of people do not like it with how their defensive woes have been with their third quarter as well, their offensive slumps. But I think the offense under Luka Doncic, we saw it in Dallas last season. When he can flip that switch and he can take over games, it's almost impossible to stop him. And I think that is going to be the decisive nature, especially with LeBron James, with his pedigree in the NBA, continuing to grow as a leader. I think the Lakers are one of the best teams in the NBA, and they're continuing to prove that. But the number 1 spot here, I'm going to have to put the Oklahoma City Thunder. It is what it is. They have the number 1 ranking in the NBA. They finished with the best record. I'm going to be one of the people that's throwing expectations on them because their record speaks for themselves. It's not fair to the Oklahoma City Thunder to write them off and just say they're going to lose before they start losing or before we see any signs of it. The Laker game, if you want to use that as an example, okay. But I also put the Lakers at 2. If you want to use the Rockets game, I didn't really put the Rockets on this list, but it's only down the stretch. They've only lost like 2 notable games that have been, like, if you really want to call them notable, they're not even really that notable. They're 2 games against the heavy Western Conference teams that are great. The 2 seed and the 3 seed in the Western Conference they lost to. Okay, it is what it is. Sometimes you can't win them all, especially down the stretch as they're looking and prepping for the NBA playoffs. Their attention isn't 100% set when they've already clinched the number 1 seed in the Western Conference and they're not really looking to achieve anything else in the regular season. They're just shifting their attention to the playoffs. That's neither here nor there, but that's my top 4 teams: Thunder, Lakers, Clippers, Warriors for the Western Conference. But yeah, I'm going to leave it on that note. My laptop is about to die. That's why if you keep seeing me look up here, it's because I keep looking to see, making sure my laptop does not die on us here. But thank you for tuning into the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show and leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. I mentioned it earlier in the show. Your feedback, whether positive or negative, please let us know what we're doing good, what we can improve upon. In general, please, we appreciate any criticism in general, good and bad, because it helps us build our show and what you guys like to hear, what you guys want to hear. It helps us build our show in general. We appreciate you guys seriously, and you guys are a big part in what you guys are a big part of what we do here at the GSMC Sports Network. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. This is Mehrob Fatemi, the host of the GSMC Basketball Podcast. Thank you for another unbelievable show. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. And this is Mehrob Fatemi signing off. Bye-bye.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.